Pre-season is often a time of real optimism for clubs up and down the country, but for Middlesbrough, this season feels very, very different indeed. With the season may not have got underway just yet, but based on the pre-season results and what we've seen from a number of players in the Middlesbrough camp, there's a lot of reason for supporters to be optimistic. Now, at the time of recording, Middlesbrough played 4 friendly matches. One of them was behind closed doors during the pre-season trip to Portugal. Since returning from Portugal, Middlesbrough have won 3-0 against Bolton, 1-0 away at Gateshead, a match that I was at, and a thrilling 5-3 victory against Doncaster Rovers. Now, there's still matches against Harrogate and Heronveen to play at the time of recording, so who knows what will happen in those games. It may go completely tits up as far as Middlesbrough's new season preparations are concerned, but I think at this moment there's a real optimism within the camp, but also among supporters about what the season could have in store. Now, if you are enjoying these videos, please do hit like on the video. Please do hit subscribe as well, because there's going to be a lot more content coming throughout the season. I am going to be touching on the wider EFL, but as a Middlesbrough supporter, there's going to be a lot of Middlesbrough content coming your way. Hopefully some exciting interviews and that sort of thing to follow as well. So please do hit subscribe, because there's going to be plenty of reason to tune in over the coming weeks and months. So why are supporters so optimistic at Middlesbrough at this time of year? Let's find out. Making blockbuster new signings is one of the things that makes fans very, very excited going into a new campaign. But before you get on to doing that, it's really important to lay the foundations of what your squad's going to be and making sure that your core characters are going to be staying in place for the upcoming season. Now, that's something that Middlesbrough had a few question marks about going into the back end of last season. Once the campaign came to an end, there was a couple of contract situations that were looking a little bit uncertain. Not too much of a worry as far as Middlesbrough were concerned. There was always a kind of feeling of calm coming out from Michael Carrick when he was asked about players in press conferences and that sort of thing. But what's really reassuring is just how quickly these situations have been tied up. Johnny Howson was coming to the end of his contract at the back end of last season. Obviously, given his age and experience in the game, he's on a situation now where he's signing 1-year rolling contracts, and it very much felt like as long as Middlesbrough wanted him to stay at the club, he was someone who would be seen as an important part of their plans moving forward. That contract got signed fairly quickly. He signed another 12-month contract, and so he'll be sticking around for the upcoming season, and that is a massive signing for Middlesbrough. I know it's not the kind of glamorous, sexy sort of signing that supporters kind of want to see, but Johnny Howson is such an important player for Middlesbrough, both on and off the pitch. He's obviously the club captain. He's someone who is a really influential figure behind the scenes. He's not a shouter and screamer on the pitch, but the way that he leads by example is absolutely imperative to the success that Middlesbrough will hopefully be able to achieve this season. Obviously, a lot of Middlesbrough's recruitment is about signing talented young players, but in order for that to work, you do need those experienced heads, those calm people who are on the pitch, kind of guiding players through the match as they get up to speed. And Johnny Howson is certainly one of those players. It remains to be seen if Howson will be a first-team regular through the course of the season. There's no doubt that he'll have a massive role to play as the season unfolds, but I think signing his new contract was a huge early boost as far as Middlesbrough are concerned. Luke Ayling was another player who you could technically put down as a new signing. Obviously, he spent the second half of last season on loan with Middlesbrough from Leeds United. He took a little while to get up to speed. His fitness wasn't quite there when he signed for Middlesbrough in January, but after a few weeks of playing regular first-team football, he was able to get himself up to speed, and he ended the season with 8 assists from right back, and it's just been a really, really key player for Middlesbrough. And again, another player who signed and has been a quality on the pitch, but just as importantly, or even more so importantly, he's someone who's come in and been a real leader off the pitch. He's a really likeable, big personality, someone who you can see that the players truly respect already. Considering he's only been at the club for a short amount of time, he's played for one of the club's biggest rivals. He's someone who has certainly come in and made a big impression. So him signing a new contract was a massive boost as well. One of the biggest question marks of the summer was about Riley McGree. Now, he was going into the last 12 months of his contract. It was a situation that left fans feeling a little bit uneasy. 12 months left in his contract. There hadn't really been any sort of suggestion that he was ready to sign a new deal at the club. And as far as I was concerned, there was something that felt a little bit icky about the whole thing. It was a situation where I was kind of starting to get a bit of, I don't know, sort of Tuba Rakpon kind of vibes, where you were sort of thinking, is he a player who's sort of looking elsewhere? Is he kind of biding his time to see what opportunities may present themselves over the course of the summer, or even going into the final year of his contract. Now, Middlesbrough aren't in a situation to let their best, most valuable players wind down their contract. They simply can't afford to. So Middlesbrough, had Riley McGree been giving suggestions that he didn't want to sign a new deal, he would have been sold this summer, because Middlesbrough would have needed to cash in. That money would be absolutely crucial in terms of rebuilding the squad and signing a replacement. But lo and behold, Riley McGree was a player who put pen to paper as soon as he returned back to first team training after the summer break. Came back, signed a new contract, committed his future to the club, and he seemed really happy to be part of the Michael Carrick project. And that's something that is really, really important, because I think during football clubs' evolution and that sort of thing, it's very, very easy that even when clubs are performing well on the pitch, there's a clear direction of travel where the clubs are looking to challenge for promotion. There's normally a few players who, I don't know, have their nose put out of joint a little bit. Riley McGree was one of those sorts of players who had a bit of a disjointed season last season with injury. There was kind of suggestions that, like, is he not happy? Is he kind of looking for a move elsewhere? And he seemed like the sort of player who maybe thought, I think my time at Middlesbrough's up. I think I can move on to a bigger and better club, maybe get a bigger and better contract elsewhere. And there was that sort of feeling around him. But the fact that he signed a new contract, he's committed his future for the next 4 years, is really, really important. And I think if he can come back fully fit, obviously in pre-season he's working his way up to fitness for the new campaign. I think Riley McGree could be a really, really important player. I think, admittedly, I've sort of forgotten just how good Riley McGree can be, because during the season where we got into the playoffs, he was just absolutely unplayable at times. Last season we didn't really see enough of it, but if he can come back fully fit and firing, he is going to be someone who'll play a massive part for Middlesbrough this season as we hopefully challenge for promotion. Now, the biggest contract of the summer was probably the new deal for Michael Carrick. Now, he's another person who was ticking away the final few months of his contract. He has another 12 months left in his deal, and obviously there's always speculation around managers in the game. And he was someone who was just starting to, to appear on the periphery of managerial links for big Premier League jobs. Obviously, you were seeing people like Kieran McKenna linked with Manchester United and Chelsea. You were seeing Enzo Maresca. He ultimately went to Chelsea, and Michael Carrick was the sort of next name on that list. He might not have been going to Chelsea or Man United this summer, but he was someone who was potentially being lined up for jobs at Brighton or Leicester and those kind of clubs in the Premier League. Now, Michael Carrick is a top manager. I think we've already seen that at Middlesbrough, and although last season didn't exactly go to plan, I think it would be naive to think that Michael Carrick is someone who will be at Middlesbrough for the rest of his career. He is someone who was going to be in the Premier League one day. He's already showed his quality from that point of view, but I think the fact that he's signed a new contract at the club means that he's very happy. He thinks that Middlesbrough can meet his ambitions of securing promotion, and ultimately it means that he's happy with the setup at the club as well, because when Michael Carrick came in, there was obviously a lot of uncertainty about the recruitment structure. Chris Wilder hadn't quite seen eye to eye with the board and with Kieran Scott about the way that transfers were going to be done, the way that business was going to be done. Is obviously the whole idea was that that Kieran Scott would be taking charge of transfers as the new sporting director. The head coach would play a big part in signing those players, but would also have to fall in line a little bit to make sure that the new signings being brought in kind of fit in with the club's strategy. And Michael Carrick's just really kind of fit into that system quite well. There's no suggestion that he's someone who has come in and just sort of, for want of a better phrase, kind of like bent over and allowed Kieran Scott to do his thing, and he's just been sort of swept aside. But Michael Carrick's played a really key part in that, and working alongside Kieran Scott and Neil Bowser in the Middlesbrough hierarchy, there seems to be a really strong, cohesive unit of people who are all pulling in the right direction. So the fact that Michael Carrick, almost 3 years on from joining the club, the fact that he's still very happy at the club, he still thinks that Middlesbrough are the club to meet his ambitions. I think it's a really, really strong signal of intent that he signed a new contract. And for Middlesbrough, that is something that has probably laid the foundations for what is to come and the positivity that's followed as we head into the new season. So with some key figures tied down to new contracts at Middlesbrough, the club were able to go out into the transfer market and bring in some really talented new players. Now, we've already mentioned Luke Ayling. He's signed on a permanent contract following his loan deal from Leeds United. That will be a massive signing, both on and off the pitch. As we've mentioned, he'll be no doubt the first choice right back for Middlesbrough, and should he stay fit, he could be a really, really important player and someone who'll be a massive part of Middlesbrough's plans of challenging for promotion. Now, the other two signings that we've made at the time of recording are Delano Bergzorg. He's joined from Mainz. Fans in the Championship might know him from his time at Huddersfield last season, where he didn't really rip up trees, let's be honest. It wasn't the most impressive loan spell, but I think if you looked at Huddersfield over the course of the campaign, it wasn't a particularly impressive campaign for anyone within their team. So it was quite a tricky period to judge him as a player. Obviously, Middlesbrough, who have infinitely more knowledge than I do, they've been looking at the data and the analytics, and there'll be plenty that they'll have been happy about from that loan spell, and there've been plenty of suggestions there to suggest that he could be a really good player for Middlesbrough. Now, he's signed as someone who can play in a couple of different positions in attacking areas. He's someone who can challenge Emmanuel Atialath as a centre forward. I think what's more likely is he's going to be an option coming off the left flank. If anyone hasn't seen him in action, he's a big, powerful presence. He's got pace. He's direct. He's someone who will get on the ball on the left flank, cut inside on his right foot and look for goal. He is. I've listened to a couple of different podcasts about him. People from like Not the Top 20 and Boro Breakdown have all done really impressive breakdowns on him to get a real insight into what he's like as a player. And one of the key messages is that he's perhaps a little bit selfish. He's potentially someone who will look after himself rather than the team. So that will be an interesting one to watch out for. But I think ultimately you've got to put your faith in Middlesbrough's recruitment team, and they've signed him for a reason. He is a different profile of player to anyone else that we do have coming off the left flank. Riley McGree is someone who will dip into those kind of a number 10 kind of positions in the team. Finn Azaz, he's more likely to be a more natural number 10 this season, but he can drift out to the left as well. You've potentially got people like Alex Bangura who might fill in on that left flank as well and provide a little bit more width. But I think Delano Bergzorg is someone who offers something slightly different. Someone who's more of a kind of inside forward. Someone who has, I guess, sort of similarities to what Marcus Force will offer on the right flank. Someone who will occupy a wide position, but their main priority will be getting into those central areas, trying to get a shot away and ultimately trying to score. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him this season and how much of a success he's deemed to be. But ultimately, you've got to put your faith in the recruitment team, because based on the last couple of seasons, they have done relatively well at signing these talents. Obviously, last season there was a lot of turnover in the playing squad, and a lot of players did take a bit of time to get up to speed. That's for another episode. We've already spoken about that a little bit anyway. But I think for Middlesbrough, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how Delano Bergzorg fits into the team. Aidan Morris is a player who I am already in love with in a completely professional way. Obviously, he signed over the course of this summer from Columbus Crew in the MLS. I've seen heaps of videos, heaps of reports about him before he signed. Loads of people being very, very excited about the signing. People who were wanting him to join their club in the EFL or other clubs around Europe. Someone who's just coming in as a real sort of all-rounder. I had the privilege of seeing him in action in the friendly against Gateshead. That was my first-hand glimpse of watching Aidan Morris in action, and it was a really interesting kind of experience, to be honest, because he was a substitute for the game. So he didn't come on the pitch until 60 minutes. For the first 60 minutes, the kind of second 11, I guess, or the alternative 11, were on the sidelines at the Gateshead International Stadium. They were doing their stretches. It was almost like a kind of makeshift training session that was kind of going on the sidelines. They weren't just sitting around watching the match. They were very much kind of like being put through their paces and making sure that they were doing stretches and kind of continuing their preparations. Now, I was watching. I was mistakenly, I bought a ticket with the Gateshead fans as opposed to the Middlesbrough ones, so I had a really good view of what was going on behind the bench, and I was watching on quite keenly. There was a lot of banter going on the sidelines. A lot of the players obviously know each other very, very well. Aidan Morris, he came across almost as like quite a shy player on the sidelines. He didn't really speak a huge amount to his teammates. He was kind of watching on keenly on the action and trying to take on a bit of advice from the other coaches. Clearly just kind of like trying to suss out the opposition a little bit, clearly quite keen to make an impression when he went on the pitch. And I was sort of looking at him thinking he seems quite nervous. Like, he seems quite nervous for coming on, and it didn't really seem like he'd sort of found his feet within the squad yet. And it made me a little bit anxious, really, as I was kind of watching him ready himself to come on the pitch. But as soon as he stepped on the pitch after 60 minutes, he was a completely different player. He was barking orders at players. He was showing for the ball every single time. And it was something that's going to be really, really exciting for Middlesbrough fans, because ultimately he's a player who can do absolutely everything in the middle of the park. He can put in tackles. He's always showing for the ball. He's a crisp passer, short passes, long passes. He was trying absolutely everything. The vast majority of them were coming off as well, which was really impressive. But what's more important was he had a change of pace, which was really impressive, and something which a lot of Middlesbrough's other midfielders don't have. He was able to get on the ball, accelerate to get away from his man, turn around, and then ultimately he was looking to play a forward pass every single time. Now, that's not a knock at Middlesbrough's other midfielders. We've already spoken about Johnny Howson and just how good he can be. Dan Barlaser, if he's got a little bit more time, he's a really good player at picking out passes as well. His stats are very impressive, considering the criticism that he sort of gets. And Hayden Hackney, we know exactly what he can offer, and he's someone who will be in for a big season this season. But I think if Aidan Morris can get himself up to speed, as soon as he's adapted to life in the Championship, which is going to be tricky as well, it will take him a little bit of time. And I do believe that probably Michael Carrick will try and ease him in a little bit, just so we can kind of get up to speed in the EFL. I think Aidan Morris could be a really, really impressive player, not just for Middlesbrough, but for the Championship as well. He's someone who really has a very bright future in front of him. He's only 22 years of age. He's a strong, powerful presence, but technically he seems absolutely quality as well. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens there, as far as he goes at Middlesbrough, and it'll be really interesting to see just how far he can go for Middlesbrough in helping us secure promotion, and ultimately becoming one of our most important players moving forward. Middlesbrough's transfer business isn't done yet, though, with one of the key reports that's going around at the moment being around Middlesbrough's move for Tommy Conway. Now, Middlesbrough are looking for a striker this summer, and Tommy Conway could be the perfect addition to come in and really make a mark for the club. Now, Emmanuel Latialata is going to be the player who's going to lead Middlesbrough's line this season. We've also got Josh Coburn, who's someone who is challenging for his place. We're yet to really see just how prolific he can be at Championship level, and that's why it's important that Middlesbrough do bring in another striker and someone who is almost a guarantee of goals at this level. And Conway is someone who is going to be a very, very exciting signing should he come in. In his last 2 seasons with Bristol City, his only 2 full seasons with the club, he scored 12 goals in all competitions in both of those campaigns. He's only 21 years of age, and he's someone who will really provide competition and support for Latialata going into the new season. So his situation is an interesting one, because he's got less than a year left on his contract. He's made it quite clear that he doesn't want to sign a new contract at Bristol City. And that means that, as far as they're concerned, the hands are a little bit tied with regards to what they can do about the situation. Similar to Middlesbrough, they can't afford to just let a player wind down his contract, and so they will have to cash in on him this summer. Now, that's where Middlesbrough come in, because they could be potentially in line for a really good deal on him. I think his valuation on Transfermarkt is around about 4 million. I imagine it will probably be a fee that's around that for Middlesbrough to bring him in. And should Middlesbrough be able to pull off that signing, it's going to be a really, really impressive piece of business. He's someone who really fits into the way that Middlesbrough do things, both off the field and on the field. He's someone who's got a very bright future ahead of him. And while I don't want to go too hard on this just yet, because it's obviously not confirmed, he does seem like a player who does kind of tick all the boxes. And as far as Middlesbrough are concerned, if they can bring him in as another attacking option, he could be a really, really important player, and someone who, for me, I will be doing my Championship predictions later on, but he is someone who could come in and really make the difference for Middlesbrough as they do look to ultimately secure a top 6 position, but more than that, secure promotion this season. And if he does come in, I think he could play a really, really big role for Middlesbrough, and that could make things very, very exciting for supporters in the coming months. One of the most exciting things about Middlesbrough going into this season is just the real depth of quality that Michael Carrick has in his squad going into the new campaign. Now, in previous seasons, we have had quality scattered around the team. Last season was a little bit different because we had a lot of players who were coming in, and there was a lot of question marks about, will he adapt to the Championship? Will he be able to step up in time? How quickly will it take him to really kind of adjust to life in the EFL? But this season, there's a really different feel to Middlesbrough's squad. You look around the whole 11 in the team, and there is strength and depth in every single position. Obviously, goalkeeper, you've got Sonny Dieng, you've got Tom Glover, you've got Sol Bryn, who's going to be sticking around. You've got right back, you've got Tommy Smith, you've got Luke Ayling, you've got Isaiah Jones, who can play there should he need to. You've got Anthony Dijksteel, who it remains to be seen whether he'll be sticking around at the club, but he's another option who can play there. Centre back, absolutely laughing. We've got Darrell Lenihan, Dale Fry, Rav van den Berg. We've got what's he called, Matt Clark as well. What's he called? That's really rude. Matt Clark can also play there. He was brilliant last season, so I should show him a lot more respect than what I just did there. Left back, Lucas Engel Bangura can both play there. You've got McCormick, who was playing in pre-season, the young lad. Central midfield, plenty of options with Aidan Morris bolstering the ranks there alongside Hackney Barlasahausen. In attack, you're looking at so many different options up there. Really, really exciting if those players can stay fit with the likes of Riley McGree, Finn Azaz, Isaiah Jones, Marcus Force, Bergzorg, Emmanuel Latilath, Josh Coburn, potentially Conway if he comes in from Bristol City. But you've also got young players who are going to be supporting that as well. Now, Law McCabe was someone who got a few run-outs last season and looked really impressive as a sort of raw talent. I got to see him during pre-season as well, and he is someone who looks like he's got a really bright future ahead of him. Whether he'll be ready to play a role in Middlesbrough's first team this season remains to be seen. He looked a little bit raw when I saw him against Gateshead. From my point of view, he was trying a little bit too hard to impress, and that's often a sign of inexperience. It's not a knock on him whatsoever, because clearly he was wanting to go out and make an impression on Michael Carrick. For me, he might be someone who goes out on loan this season. He could really benefit from a bit of time maybe in League Two. Would be a great place for him to go and get some senior level match experience. That would be very good for him and very good for Middlesbrough as well in the long run, because I do think that he could be a player who challenges for those central midfielder positions in the future. But Sonny Finch was someone who was really, really impressive in pre-season. We saw a lot of him. Not a lot of him. We saw a fair bit of him last season. We could see a little bit of what he was capable of, but he's someone who offers something very, very different for Middlesbrough. He can play up front. Predominantly, he sort of plays off the right flank, and he's someone who has pace and confidence, and he's someone who gets on the ball and runs at fullbacks, which is a little bit of a throwback, really, because you don't really see it that often. I know that Isaiah Jones does it, but I think Sonny Finch would do it in a slightly different way. I think Isaiah Jones, it's not his natural instinct to get himself into goal scoring positions, but I think Sonny Finch is someone who could be a really, really exciting attacking player. Whether he'll be sticking around at Middlesbrough over the course of this season, I'd like to think that he will do. He's someone who's certainly got a lot of quality, and Michael Carrick certainly backs him based on the amount of game time that he's got during pre-season. But I think when everyone is fit, it's just kind of difficult to see where he would fit into Middlesbrough's plans. Obviously, you've got Jones and Force who'll be challenging for those spots on the right. In attack, you've got Latilath and any new striker that comes in to help him. Josh Coburn as well. And so for a young player of that age and that potential, it's all well and good saying, well, stick around with Middlesbrough's first team, go out there, take your opportunities when you get them. But it's really, really important that they play regular first team football. If it was me, I'd be backing him. I'd be keeping him in the Middlesbrough squad and making sure that he's getting regular game time. He'd have a regular spot on the bench. I'd be making sure that I was bringing him off the bench to make sure that over the course of the campaign, he was getting 15, 20 appearances under his belt. But if that's not going to be possible, I think it'd be really good for him to head out on loan. All of these problems are great for Michael Carrick to have. As I was mentioning at the start of this segment, it's been a little while since Middlesbrough have had such quality, strength and depth in a lot of different positions. Now, Middlesbrough are absolutely stacked across the team, and this is a wonderful problem to have. There's going to be a lot of competition for places, a lot of options for Michael Carrick to change games if things aren't quite going to plan, or it's a bit of a 0-0 stalemate and we need someone to come on and change the game. There's going to be lots of different formulas that you can dip into to try and get a result. And I think as well as that, having these really talented young players at his disposal as well, whether it's for this season or moving forward, is going to be a really, really positive thing for the club. as we plan for this season and the seasons ahead. So it's really, really a good time for Middlesbrough at the moment. Going into this season, there's so many reasons to be optimistic. I think I will be doing a championship prediction closer to the start of the campaign, but just wanted to do this sort of video based on the pre-season matches so far, just to say that I personally very, very excited. You look at the squad and the makeup of it, and Michael Carrick and the way that the team's kind of coming together, and there's every reason to be really positive that Middlesbrough are going to have a great season. They're going to be challenging for promotion. I think the championship promotion race is going to be more open than ever. The three teams that have come down, they're not all that great. There's nothing to be scared of there as far as I'm concerned. And so I think for Middlesbrough, it's a real opportunity this term to kick on and challenge, not just for a top 6 place, but ultimately challenging for promotion and ultimately trying to kind of take the next step in the Michael Carrick project and the project that's being developed by Middlesbrough at the moment. So let me know if you've enjoyed this video. Drop into the comments with anything that you would like to see Middlesbrough do before the end of the transfer window. Hit like, hit subscribe as well, because like I said, there's going to be a lot more Middlesbrough content coming over the coming weeks and months and throughout the season. Some very exciting stuff planned as well. So do hit subscribe, and yes, I will catch up with you very soon.